Good afternoon, all, and it is a great day to be a Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech. Some channel news to start off with. I started a Twitter account. You can follow the channel at Rec Talk on Twitter. Now, full disclosure, I've never had a Twitter. I've never tweeted. And I don't really understand Twitter or most of social media. And when I realized that, I had to come to the realization that I am becoming an old man like the people I judged in my youth. So anyways, I want to thank everyone for the support. The channel's kind of starting to blow up. We blew through 200 subscribers. It took us about 2 months to get to 100 and about 2 days to get to almost 3. We're at like 260 plus now and 14,000 views. So I appreciate it. Thank you for all the comments. Overwhelmingly supportive. And let's see what happens. So I had to actually re-record that part because I didn't turn my microphone on. And it made me, it reminded me of being in microelectronic circuit analysis. I think it's 3043, ECE 3043 at Tech. And I've got my circuit built. And I'm looking at a Bode plot of it. And it doesn't look right. It looks all wonky. And for like an hour, I'm trying to figure this out. And I call the professor over, Dr. Brewer, who was great. Dr. Brewer would say, you need to open up the program. If you can't open up the program, transfer to UGA and major in hog slopping. He was a great guy. Anyways, it turned out I didn't have the power supply on. So this is nothing new for the host of Rec Talk. Anyways, I want to talk about an article I'll link in the description that AJC Ken Segura wrote. News on the staff. So I did miss one. It appears we're getting rid of our offensive coordinator, Chip Long, wide receivers coach, what is his name? Del Alexander, and the strength and conditioning coach, Louis Carralla. That's the one I didn't mention. It appears that the entirety of the defensive staff will be retained, which I know there's varying opinions on. At the end of the video, I'm going to pull some comments up and we'll discuss them. Now, the buyout for Chip Long is $850,000. I wasn't aware that we were paying him that much. I mean, that is getting into top-tier coordinator pay. I would say in between the 1.5, 2 million range, those are kind of top tier coordinators. Bottom tier Power 5 coaches, head coaches, generally the bottom is like 3 million. So we owe Long $850K. He was also our tight ends coach. We do have 2 promoted coaches that their future is uncertain. So running backs coach Donald Hill-Ely. It's not certain if we will retain him or move him to a different role. And the assistant special teams coach, J.B. Hall. Key hasn't made any comment or no moves have been made on those fronts. So we do have 3 spots to fill as of now. Obviously, our offensive coordinator. Now, I'm sure let me just say, this was my thought of like, well, we probably saved money by hiring Key compared to what it would have cost to hire other candidates we were targeting. But when you think of going out and getting a top-tier, proven winner offensive coordinator, number one, it's going to cost a lot because generally these offensive coordinators, if they're top tier, they're very successful. They're in a stable situation, and they're looking to become head coaches. So, in my opinion, we're going to have to get an up-and-comer and make a smart move. And it could be that we promote Chris Winkie. I've seen 2 people in the comments say that Winky was actually calling plays for North Carolina and Georgia. And evidently, this was reported on 680 The Fan, or I guess this was they talked about this on the radio show. So who knows? If that's true, it could be that we just promote Winky. He's already landed a big recruit for 2024, 4-star quarterback, number 19 overall quarterback. So a lot to be excited about there. We also need to hire an offensive line coach to replace Key. Right now we have Nathan Brock, who is a graduate, or Nathan Brock, who's a graduate assistant that Key promoted into that role. Certainly he'll be moved back into a graduate assistant role or some other role, and we're going to have to go target an offensive line coach. And we're also going to need a wide receivers coach. So that's 3 hires as of now that we need to make. And I'll be honest, I'll have to do research. I'll probably do a video on, who good offensive coordinator targets for us. But we'll see. Now, the impressive thing, because one of what I've said is the fairest criticism of Key is we don't know what kind of recruiter that he could be. Now, that being said, he did do a pretty darn good job of recruiting offensive linemen at the years he was at Alabama. But check this out, because it surprised me. Tech secured 4 of our 2023 commits while Key was the interim. So I don't know how you would pitch coming to Tech when you don't know who the head coach is going to be and secure these kids. But we were able to do it, which I think is impressive. So with that being said, we currently have 69 players on scholarship. Now, that is not including the 3 players we have in the transfer portal. That's Jeff Sims, Nate McCullum, and Ryan King. We have 16 commits for the 2023 class. Now, that adds up to 85. This is what Kim Segura wrote on this article in AJC, but it doesn't look like this includes the seniors that are going to graduate. So I just looked at our roster, or our projected starters, whatever. It used to be above the line. I can't get it out of my head. I need to get that out of my head. So we're going to lose Hassan Hall, running back. He's a senior. Malachi Carter, very good receiver for us. He is graduating. William Lay, senior, the only upperclassman on that offensive line. Keon White, defensive lineman, also, who was very good for us. Ely, the linebacker that transferred out of Maryland, is a senior. Charlie Thomas, arguably the best player on our entire team, graduates at linebacker. Kenny Bennett, defensive back, graduates. So that's 7 seniors. And as I read it, that's 7 spots to fill. Now, I do think that we can claw back Nate McCullum, possibly King. I think Sims is done. If he had any desire to stay at Tech, he wouldn't have separated from the team for the final few games. And it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up at Nebraska. It could be – I think that – I'll say this. I think Collins will end up at Nebraska on some capacity, being that he coached under Matt Rule at Temple, and they have a relationship. I don't know if he'll name him their DC or co-DC or whatever. I do think he'd be a good recruiting coordinator for you, though. That was kind of his best attribute of selling a program to people and recruiting. His issue was just winning, and if you can get him away from having to deal with that, I think he could be an excellent recruiting coordinator for you. And I would think when the portal does officially open up, which is the 7th of December, I would not be surprised that he gives Sims a call. Now, that being said, and if you haven't looked at Josh Pate I think it's Late Kick with Josh Pate. He has an excellent podcast, excellent YouTube channel that goes over this. And he talked about, first of all, you don't have to transfer if you do enter the portal. And the portal hasn't opened up yet. So all these kids that have said they're entering the portal, they're giving their intention to enter the portal. They're saying, I intend to enter the portal once the portal opens up. And there are going to be kids that enter the portal. This was a good point he made, that might not have any intention of transferring. Well, why would they do that? Well, it's like when you work somewhere and you take interviews. You might not have any intention of leaving your job, but you want to see what the market looks like. So they're most likely filling out the NIL landscape. And I can't blame a kid for doing that. That's exactly what I would do if I was playing college football. And I know there's a lot of people that, this transfer portal's garbage, NIL is ruining college athletics. And I don't see it that way, because I think on some level kids were not even on some level, kids were straight up being taken advantage of. And I'm not picking on Georgia. These are just examples that come off the top of my head. Freddie Gibson was a wide receiver for Georgia. He gets penalized for selling his SEC championship ring. Why is that a problem? Does he not own the ring? Is it not his? Even kids that sign their autographs or stuff, that's their likeness. How many Todd Gurley number 3 jerseys did Georgia sell that Todd Gurley didn't see a dime from? Now, I know it doesn't have his name on it, but why do you think they sold so many number 3 jerseys when Todd Gurley was there? The other thing that was problematic is, for instance, when Kirby came in, he barred anyone from transferring to Miami, which is where Mark Richt went, who was the coach that they just fired, even though they said it was mutual. He was let go. Or any other SEC school. They were barred from doing that. That is absurd to me. Now, I don't blame Kirby for doing that. He was doing what he had to do to keep his team together. But if these are student athletes, like when I was at Tech, if I invented something, I could go sell it, and I could go make money from it, and I could transfer it to anywhere I want. If I want to go to MIT or Cal Berkeley or whatever, I could do that. Tech can't bar me from transferring to any school. If these are student athletes, how is that ever allowed, that you were barred from transferring to a school? Now, we do have to kind of catch up with kind of regulating this. For instance, when Lincoln Riley took the job at USC, he takes their starting quarterback with him and 1 or 2 other players, I believe. So you're never going to convince me that before he took that job, he wasn't priming them saying, hey, I'm about to make a move. I need you guys to come with me. I don't think that should be allowed, but I don't know how you regulate it either. Pat Narduzzi at Pitt was mad about this, and it's a fair thing to be mad about. Their best wide receiver enters the portal, and the second he enters the portal, says he's going to USC. And Narduzzi's like, well, how did that happen so quickly? You're not allowed to contact the kid until he enters the portal. The second he enters the portal, he transfers. And also with NIL, I don't know. It seems like you probably need to cap it, or you're just going to have teams like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU, who, insert top program wherever with money, that are just going to be able to buy the best players. So I don't know if you should cap it, say, hey, you can't, each team is limited to dispersing X amount of NIL money. I don't know. I just know it was necessary, and it appeared to me that before, teams were taking advantage of it. I mean, look, the Big Ten just signed a $2 billion TV deal, You're watching you're tuning in to watch these kids, right? So it seems like they should get something for that. I wanted to go through the defensive staff that it appears that will be retained. Defensive coordinator Andrew Thacker, run game coordinator David Turner, special teams coordinator Jason Seymour. I really like what I've heard from him. I know that we, kind of flubbed a kick or a punt against Georgia, but from where we came, I think he did a heck of a job. Defensive backs coach Travaris Tillman and defensive line coach Larry Knight. Now, there still could be movement on these fronts, but I think he's just looking at the biggest problem with Georgia Tech right now is the offense, and we need to make moves and get that moving in a more positive direction. Once you kind of make some hires on that front, then maybe you can focus on making changes on the defensive front. All right, so with that being said, let's look at some comments. So let's see here. Vince Wilkes says, I don't understand the point of bringing all these Tech guys back. Unless it's purely for recruiting reasons, it doesn't mean that they are the best persons for the job and will just hurt more if and when we have to fire them. Absolutely a fair point. I talked about Tech alums because they're just names that I know. And you see this, like, for instance, at Florida. We got a Florida man, or Nebraska when they hired Scott Frost. We got a a Nebraska guy now. That doesn't matter so much to me. And even with Key, I said it mattered to me from the standpoint of recruiting, that no one can talk about what it's like to play at Tech like a guy that played at Tech, and he's less likely to jump ship. Aside from that, though, I just want a guy that's going to win, So whoever we hire to fill these positions, honest to God, it doesn't matter to me if they're a Tech guy, Tech alum, they ever worked at Tech or not. This is a results-driven business. As long as the OC we hire progresses our offense and we play better and we're, competing for our division, whatever, I don't care if he's from Alaska or the moon. It doesn't matter. So definitely fair point, Vince. I don't know. This is such small text. I'm an idiot for not correcting this. Richard Lely, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, which I guess has a professional engineering degree. Kudos on that. Those aren't easy to get. Defensive coordinator Thacker has been even worse than Key's offensive line. Took over for a defense that ranked 33rd in the nation. I guess he's saying third down to 89th. Oh, down to 89th. So he took over a defense that ranked 33rd in the nation down to 89th, where we are now, I guess. Run defense that ranked 49th down to 108th. And the bum still has a job. Easy, Richard. No need for name calling. I don't get it. I disagree that the wallet is opening up. If that were the case, we would have gotten a more experienced head coach with a proven track record. So there's a few things there. To the first point, that when Thacker took over, he's comparing it to Paul Johnson's tenure. And I don't think you can just hand wave that Collins was running the show. So I don't know what type of engineering you're in. You say you have an MBA, so maybe you're in business. But let's say I'm designing, the next AirPods for Apple. I'm running the show at Apple, and I say, look, I don't care anything about the battery life. I just want the sound quality to be as great as possible. If that is the directive you're getting that you have to follow, there's no way you're going to have a successful product. And I think that showed analogous to Thacker once Collins was removed. So I don't know how much of a hand Collins had in the defense. He said last year he was taking a much greater role in it. And I think the defense played phenomenally better than they did when Collins was there. We had a few All-ACC guys on our defense. Our turnover differential was great, and our offense consistently put them in horrible situations. We get a 3-and-out, other team punts, we turn it over in the other team's red zone. It's just kind of tough to deal with. And when you're not getting support and the momentum is always on the other team's shoulders, it's just difficult to overcome that. So, look, if we retain Thacker, we might see more of the same, and I will issue an apology and say, look, I was flat out wrong. And, Richard, you could be right. Maybe we do need to target another defensive coordinator. I don't think Thacker necessarily needs to go, though. I could be wrong. To the point that, hey, the wallets aren't opening up, or we would have gotten a more experienced head coach. And this is what Bryce Kuhn reported on his show. If we didn't hire Brent Key, there was a threat from donors. This is the rumor. They would pull donations. If we didn't, Key was their guy, and they hired him. If that's true, that kind of flies in the face of the wallets aren't opening up. It's just the wallets had a condition on who the coach needed to be. We did target Jamie Chadwell. Again, Bryce Kuhn talked about Chadwell had a contingency to be hired that he needed to be able to wipe the staff and bring his own staff in. And Jay Batt would not comply with that, and that is when he withdrew his name from consideration. So I don't know that it was a money issue. And I don't know if you're saying we should have hired Willie Fritz instead of Key either. But I don't know that it's because the wallets aren't opening up. Like I said, I think we're going to see an influx of money, being that Key is the money's choice, right? So, again, those are fair points, though. Richard is a Tech alum. Go Jackets. Thank you for the support and participate in the comment section. Jeff Dover gives a suggestion for offensive coordinator hire for Tech and Brian Ellis at Georgia Southern. So I'll need to research that. Georgia Southern did, to my understanding, had a very good offense. Georgia Southern was a good team this year. When you look at, they had a very successful program before entering Division I athletics, getting into the Sun Belt. Paul, obviously, Johnson had a lot of success there. But they've transitioned into Division I football. They almost beat Tech when Paul was there. It came down to the wire. I think they beat Nebraska this year, which isn't necessarily saying much, but appeared to be very effective on offense. And to speak to what I was talking about earlier, I think that is probably the kind of hire we'll have to make at offensive coordinator. David Jackson says, finally got it right. Good luck, Coach Key, and go Dogs. And I wanted to put that up there to say, look, I kind of rag on the Dogs a lot. They're our rival. But they've shown the channel a lot of support, and 99% of them say Key is the right guy. Nerdstop, who's been a subscriber, he might have been the first subscriber, I don't know, early on. Also, congrats, you now have more subscribers than Gen 1 Pokemon at 52. Now, I wanted to talk about this. I took statistics for electrical engineering majors. And on the final, by the way, that was one of the hardest classes I ever took. The last question on the final did have to do with Pokemon. So I hope that makes you happy. Nice guy, Quad 918. This only goes to show how unpopular the Georgia Tech job is. Kirby will own this guy easily. And we kind of got in a back and forth. But that is the minority of Georgia fans that I've seen, comment on the channel. I guess we'll see, right? Kirby certainly seemed to have a lot of respect for Key and the staff at Tech. Certainly had him nervous for a minute. And look, here's the thing. You can't compare the programs of Georgia and Georgia Tech right now. I'm sure Smart will continue to beat us for a while. I'm not really concerned with competing with Georgia right now. There's only maybe 3 teams in the country that can compete with Georgia right now. The focus for Tech right now, goal number 1 is we need to make a bowl, Need to make a bowl. Goal number 2 is we need to compete for our division. And 3 is win the ACC. Progress that. Whether we beat Georgia or not, it's not that it's not important to me, but it's not the number 1 goal. So, nice guy. Thanks for commenting on the channel. Hope to see you around. And thank everyone for the support. So, look, comment in the comment section, who do you think would be a good OC hire? Do you agree with the changes Key is making? Do you agree with retaining Andrew Thacker and the defensive staff? What do you think about promoting Winky to OC, etc.? Have a good day.